you to believe that you were always like Christian or something like that.
Yeah, I guess like it's just innate. It's like it's part of life.
Yeah,
it's part of like anything else.
Hold on.
If you have like an argument for why that
because
is,
like it's easy to connect.
You're saying it's an inherent
Hold on.
sort of
yeah,
property.
you say it's innate, right? So what's
Right,
the
to your
That's not
like
what innate means.
existence. That's what it means, bro. What do you mean? The fuck are
Yeah,
you
you
saying?
said innate means that it's going to be out there in nature, right? Is that what you
Innate
said?
meaning like from your existence, your conception, from like your birth. It's innate.
I don't.
There's nothing that.
That's what
What?
innate. Okay, innate just means that it's going to be
What
an
it
inherent
means,
property,
bro.
right?
Yeah, it's just going to be an inherent
Yes,
factor that
to your life.
constitutes
It's
your being.
innate. Yeah, like exists. Like the fact that you breathe is innate.
Sure.
Right.
Right. It's inherent to the.
So the fact that you
essence of
believe in
human that you
God
have
would
to
be
breathe.
innate. Right. Exactly.
why?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's I guess a normal.
Yeah. Why is that innate?
Because it is. What do you mean?
You think I'm a human?
For the yeah, you
You?
probably are.
Do I have the property of believing in God?
Yes.
What do you mean by belief?
Applying an idea to something like a belief. You know how to
Applying
believe.
an idea to something. Okay, so you believe in unicorns? So I take it. Do you think you believe in unicorns?
I believe in the idea of unicorns. Yeah.
Yeah, which means to say that you believe in unicorns.
Right. Yeah. I believe in the idea of unicorns, and they could be real, dude.
Yeah,
For all I know, like in reality,
right,
out there in the wild,
they exist.
I haven't experienced one necessarily, but they could be real. Yeah. Why not?
Okay, so they could be real. So you're just going to bite the bullet and say that they could be. Yeah, just because something can be real, that's not going to
It could
tell that
be,
it is, right?
But I
What do you
mean,
mean by
I don't
can?
think
Yeah,
God
well,
and
operator?
unicorns are necessarily like this a similar, thing.
No, because unicorns are a lot more likely.
Like unicorns
Yeah,
are
I
more
mean-
like are already
Mhm.
understood to be like mythical creatures created by like humans.
Like God.
Like it's already understood. Like
humans?
Like
Yeah,
God.
right.
Where is that in the understanding? I'm sorry, I've never heard that
This
account.
guy's so dumb. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, you can
Yeah,
go and like
so
search
your
it up
argument
and
is-
figure out the history to like a
that
unicorn.
you do believe in unicorns, right? Because you have the idea of unicorns, which means to say that you believe in them by your own account. So that you would assign some.
I mean, yeah, I believe in unicorns. I know that they're real. Yeah, I know it.
Yeah, so
You know they're real, huh? How do you know they're
I
real?
just think it'd be a reduction.
Because I've seen one.
It's gonna be a reduction to the claim.
Where have
Yeah,
you seen one?
yeah,
It's
hey,
unfortunate that you guys haven't
Yeah, my boy,
experienced
hey, you gotta blow your
something
nose.
that is a unicorn, but maybe you guys aren't worthy.
Yeah,
Damn.
this guy's a fucking troll, dude. No one's taking you seriously.
yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, do you have like an argument for why
I
God
don't
exists?
really take like semantic like pseudo intellectual like idiots that
Semantic
serious either. But yeah,
pseudo-intellectual.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
idiot.
You invoked
You-
the term
like virgin
so dumb.
You got corrected on the
teenagers.
term belief.
Like I said, I've been there. I've been an atheist, bro.
Yeah,
You were
this
giving- you were
guy's a
giving-
moron.
Your
Hold on,
logic
hold on,
is just
hold on,
infantile,
hold on.
dude.
I
Sorry.
wasn't finished.
Yeah,
No, I don't. It doesn't matter if you're
And
finished or not. It doesn't
I
matter.
can't
you
take
were
people
giving
like
an
you serious.
example,
I'm not gonna lie.
and then you just bit the bullet.
You're not really
Why would
making any
anyone take you
points. Yeah. Yeah, I bite the bullet.
Yeah, so
unlike
unicorns
you.
exist.
Sorry.
What's the argument for that? What makes you think that unicorns exist?
Because I've seen one, dude. What do you mean? Like, do you want to argue on my account of seeing a
Yeah,
unicorn?
when-
Like,
Yeah,
are
we
you
can
a
do
fucking
that.
retard?
Yeah, so
Wait,
where
You must be a retard,
where
bro.
can we find this unicorn? Where can we find this?
Anyone who's siding
unicorn
with
in
you
the
right now must be a fucking idiot as well. Damn. But yeah, you're
Yeah,
just
Oh
like,
my God,
you're
you got
just
a high as fuck and he saw a unicorn.
Hold on, Trans.
I've seen a unicorn, bro, and I fucked it. We fucked, and like I got it pregnant, bro. Like
Yeah,
they
so
gave birth to my
hold on,
children,
let me
bro. I
talk to
raised
this.
these fucking
Hold on.
unicorn baby fucking hybrids, dude. Like they became real, bro.
Yeah, where are they
Like,
at?
and then I fucked them too, right? And then it became like
Is
that's
this
like
the way you have to go?
where are
They're
they? Where are
very
they at?
Christian, like-
Lord,
Your original claim.
Lord.
Because I'm
Lord,
being as
Paradigmatic,
dude,
yeah, you're very
basically, like,
paradigmatic
your
of this.
mission.
So you
Yeah,
said it's an
paradigmatic
inherent-
of the
you
Christian
said wait.
So I butt fucked my children unicorns, bro.
Lord,
You said
Yeah,
it's-
Lord.
I'm waiting for them to
You said
give
it's
birth as we
You
speak.
said it's inherent to one's nature.
Oh, what are you saying?
God.
Bada,
But
money
I
sign,
have
money
a human
sign.
nature. I have
Shut
a human
up.
nature,
Shut
and yet I
up.
don't have the property of
Shut
believing
up.
God.
Shut up.
So that's just a contradiction.
Nah, he's done. Yo, that dude was
You're
mentally challenged. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, so, no,
It's hilarious.
not even no question. He was like, yo, what is he talking about? He's actually yapping wild. I'm like doing a fake cheesesteak, cracking up to this moronic. Like, I don't even know what he was talking about. He was just like yapping. Why would he even think like his intuition?
Really, what did you do to get fucking muted and banned? And if you got banned, how the fuck are you here?
Crash, the bots went over you earlier.
No, yeah, because there was multiple bots. I could beat like two of
So
them.
you guys believe in the Islamic God a lot?
Could you not talk about that right now? Because we're not trying to talk about that right now.
Well, I'm trying to talk about that right now.
That's crazy. Can you stop
Yeah.
talking about it?
Who the hell is this?
It's your father now. Like, pipe up. Anyone who believes that they're like,
This magazine, this magazine,
yeah,
this magazine.
his little retard ass. Yo, why this dude like?
You'll still not get a single quality of the external world. You'll get only quantity. That's the domain of materialism. And so it's the onus is on them to square this circle
Oh,
for
Bert
us.
Dawkins in the bitch.
Give us the qualities from these quantities. Give us this bridge.
Huh.
And they can't. And the reason is there is no bridge.
Yeah. Like also my critique would be, well, like, okay, if you're gonna say like the brain is only matter.
Can I say one thing? There's no bridge from the below to above. The bridge is more like coming from above to below, because the conscious soul dictates what the brain does and can do. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
Yeah, also, like, my critique also for the people who claim, like, our brain is only matter. Well, it's like, prove it.
This dude was on the
this
on
is
Tom
not, like,
Rabbit's
lack
video.
of belief
This dude's
that
like,
the brain is
he's not
material.
idiot.
You have an active claim.
Come on,
Your
come on.
claim is, our brain
You're
is
showing
just
that
like, just like matter. Well, prove it. Like, give me a concrete conclusion in which I cannot, like, reasonably doubt that our brain, like, must be physical. Like,
Well, I think by brain you mean mind.
Yeah, mind. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, again, to say that the mind is physical, the first thing to do is ask them what is it to be physical, and most materialists don't even know what that means. So once you teach them what it means to be physical, then, and I'll just tell you right now, to be physical means that you have quantities, which are called mass, amplitude, charge, frequency. These things are all in space. They're spatial. Okay, that's what it means to be physical. There are more, obviously, but this is just physics.
Yeah.
And so physics can attach itself and see these quantities. That's what it means to be physical. Now, the brain has this, right? So the brain has mass, the brain has a frequency. Now you have to give us that for thoughts, my feeling of sadness. And if you can't do that, then there's no good reason to believe that. That's just one good reason to disbelieve in materialism, but there are more.
Yeah.
Remember, to be physical means you're spatial, like a brain, a physical brain.
Yeah.
But if you cannot give me my thoughts in grams or in millimeters, then stop calling them spatial. Stop saying that neurons are thoughts, because neurons are not thoughts. They're neurons.
Yeah. I mean, then, like what would neurons represent then? Like, it would just, like, represent activity of the
yes,
brain.
Yes, they're associated with our thoughts for sure. But this is as far as it goes. All you can say is that neurons are associated with our thoughts.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker, though. One last kicker. According to Sharon Bagley and other neuroscientists, most of the morphological changes of the brain happen because of thinking. So if you decide to go learn how to ride a bike, it's going to bend the will of your neurons to be in a certain shape in your motor cortex.
Yeah.
It's not you thinking and then go ahead.
What you're saying is going right over the heads of unbelievers. They don't care. The reason why they're adopting materialism for the mind, okay, is because they don't want to acknowledge that they are a spirit or a soul and joined with a body, and therefore God.
Exactly.
They don't want to acknowledge this. So, regardless of how substantive what you're saying is true, okay, not discounting that at all, it doesn't matter to them because they're operating off of confirmation bias. Dead men do bleed. You know that joke?
Bingo.
Okay, so because they do not want to acknowledge God, and they continually are reminding themselves through irrational talking points that there's no reason to believe in God or God doesn't exist, they have, by default, they have to accept a materialistic view of the mind. Okay, and you could be spot on with everything you're saying. They don't care.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. This is like a dog. I feel like a dog chasing my tail.
Yeah.
Yo, K-Sun, you gotta add me back.
I have a question. Sorry, I cut somebody off. Sorry.
I was just saying that this dude named K-Sun, you know, add me out. I'm gonna clap him.
Yeah. If you're gonna come in here and just be rude, then you're just gonna get muted. And I'm never gonna speak to you. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I mean, if I may,
I'm wasting my time, bro. I would pull that loser any day of the week. He ain't no Phil. He's just like a little precept. Yeah, I actually hate these precept dudes. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, the politics of it is like actually boring. Right now I'm just going around with turns, trying to fold anyone I could find on theology, or even like, I don't know, any Phil topic, but I don't know where turns went. He said he was banned from that room, that's why he didn't join me. So let's try and find some room we can clown. Atheism is BS, that basically sucks, these people are boring.
Why the problem of hermeneutics exists is that there is no way to absolutely interpret the Bible in a correct way. There's no mechanism to determine what that is. That is why we have 6 families of...
Like, God does been revealed to me that He is good. I would be questioning the efficacy of the truth serum. That's what I would be questioning.
Okay.
Yeah, there's who's a Christian in here?
Ask a Christian. I'm a Christian.
Ask a Christian?
Yeah.
Alright. Yep. Yeah, I'm just wondering. You have like any formal argument for why you believe God exists?
Yeah.
Argument?
So the argument is that you are currently speaking. You're speaking right now. Would you agree? Would you agree that you are speaking right now?
Is that the argument?
Yeah, it's kind of a stepwise process. So would you agree that you're speaking right now?
That's a simple premise. Just lay out the inference and we can talk about the soundness after, right?
I like to
you don't lay out a premise and then ask for the justification. I don't need to know if it adheres to the axioms of inferential rules to see whether or not it's a deductively valid argument. So just lay out the inference, and then we could talk about each premise after the argument is demonstrated to be fully valid.
Well, I like to go through things like one step at a time because if I just lay everything out and then you don't understand what I said, then it's just okay. It's not really conducive for learning.
Yeah, I mean, I highly disagree with most logicians.
And I have like a lot of. I go into a lot of like topics that most people don't think about. All right, so let's
Can I just get clear what inference you're using?
All right, let's answer the question. So would you agree that you're speaking like right now you're speaking? Would you agree?
Well, right now what I'm trying to establish is whether or not the inference is valid. Right? It really wouldn't matter whether or not I agree.
Can you answer the question because
well, what I asked for was an argument. You're not laying out an argument. If you just want to go like
I stated why I'm not going to do the whole premise conclusion thing, because the stuff I talk about is not easy to grasp. Right?
So,
it takes time. It takes exploring. It takes like learning. Right? Like you don't really know. Like you don't know. You don't know a lot of stuff. All right. So okay.
I know a lot of stuff.
If you can show me, all right. So here, I'll ask you some questions, and if you have a decent knowledge, then I'll do the thing that you.
Hold on. Let's do this in a preliminary fashion. Hold on, because you agreed you had a formally valid argument.
Let me test what you know. All right. Let me test what you know, and then if you know some basic stuff, okay, then I'll just lay it out like you want.
No, that's not preliminary. Right? You already agreed that you had a formally valid argument. I just want you to display that.
I'm not going to lay it out. I'm not going to lay it out if you don't. I'm not going to lay it out if you don't know anything. Right? If you don't know anything, there's no point. So let's.
I would just see that as a failure in your aptitude to actually deploy an inference.
Let's go a step at a time. Okay, so all right.
So let's. You already proved to me that you don't have an argument.
All right. What's the difference? What's the difference between ontology and epistemology?
Yeah, you already proved to me that you don't have the ability to actually lay out an inference.
Yeah. Okay. So all right. Since you're not answering,
I'll say something like.
I mean, listen, I can answer. Listen, hold on. Yeah, ontological matters just deal with like the status of existence and existential propositions. Epistemology deals with frameworks of knowledge, and it also deals with the semantics of what it means to say something's knowledge, what constitutes, methodological frameworks of, how we attain knowledge and things like that. While ontology deals with the matter of being and metaphysical existence and bro, this is all basic philosophy. I'm not like a little retard who just hopped on Discord, right? I've read papers, I've read literary works of philosophy. Listen, all I want you to do is deploy a formally valid argument that you said you can actually do, right? You got the aptitude and feasibility to actuate that. So just actuate the state of affairs in which you actually produce a valid argument. That'd be great. And then after you have a formally valid inference, we can talk about the soundness of the argument. All I care right now for is the structure of an argument. Okay, so lay out the argument.
So ontology is what it is, right? It's the nature.
So I don't know
nature.
if I'm any kind of valid.
Okay.
And how's this an inference? Are you going to lay out the inference or no?
Okay. All right. So basically, so ontology is what it is, right? It's the nature of being, right? And epistemology is like your theory of knowledge, right? It's how you come.
Well, I take it that that wouldn't be being necessarily. I take it that existence along with identity accommodate ontology.
It's a little bit hard to hear you. Like it's hard to hear you.
Yeah, I have a pretty bad mic. Yeah, but I said what I take to mean being is that being is accommodated by both ontology and ontological status of an entity and an identity that corresponds with that entity. I take it that being is more metaphysical rather than just purely ontological. But anyways, I'm just wondering, do you have an inference or not? I don't know if you're stalling or what. You're trying to play these little games like I'm some ignoramus and I'm not cognizant of rudimentary philosophical things. But that doesn't really matter, right? Just deploy the inference that you said you have the aptitude to actually do. I don't know why you're doing all this nonsense.
All right.
I'm not interested in you doing an IQ test right now, right? Just give an argument that you said you have.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing the argument, and I like to do it in my style. But you're like, no, I want it like premise 1, premise 2, conclusion, and that sort of thing. So here's the question. What's your epistemology?
I don't know why you're asking questions when you still haven't deployed the inference.
Say what?
Yeah, I don't understand why you're asking
your epistemology.
Wait, how come? Because I take particular epistemic views.
Oh yeah, but hold on, because I'm not interested right now in you posing me on my epistemic framework or paradigm, right? Because that's not.
Well, I'm fine with you quizzing me on my epistemic
Yeah,
framework.
well, that's not what's in concern right now, right?
Yeah.
What's in concern is if you can deploy a valid inference, and every second that goes by, it seems that you're incapable of that and you're stalling.
All right. Well, I think there should be like a little bit of dialogue, a little bit of give and take, because the reason why I would ask what is your epistemology, what is your theory of knowledge, is because and where do we end up? Like, did you have one theory of knowledge and then later throughout the course of the conversation you went to a different place, and that's completely fine. Like, I'm not gonna hold it against you if, like, you start off in one area and then you completely move to a different area. But I'm just like, that's just something I want to understand. Like, it's a little bit of background as we get into the conversation.
You're just rambling.
But yeah, I mean, if you're unwilling to, if you're unwilling to engage in any sort of like good faith,
I'm willing to engage in a good faith dialogue. Right? It's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, there's other people. There's turns, right? Turns is actually.
Nah, this dude is actually
right, and that's like a more honest way of engaging, right? Instead, you kind of like, you just want to be like, oh, okay, if you don't stick to this rigid form and this rigid structure,
well, so hold on. This dude wants to obfuscate and act like I'm the dishonest one. Okay, that's fine. You can talk with turns.
No, I mean, you are.
No. It seems like you shit yourself when you start talking with me, right? And like,
I just don't think that's what
you said that. Yeah, you said that not deploying an inference or wanting me to have you deploy an inference and not going like in some weird, I don't know, idiosyncratic method of discourse, that I'm dishonest, right? Like, you said you had an argument, deploy the argument. Right now you're just asking me extraneous things to whether or not you can actually produce an argument. Like, to produce the argument after, I can work. Listen, I can do an internal critique, right? I can work by your own terms and whatever you take to be the epistemic framework. That's going to be fine. So it doesn't really matter what epistemic framework I work with, right? I can just use the same frameworks you use in which you deduce or confer this conclusion and critique it by that manner, right? I don't really care. I mean, you evidently just don't want to engage, and you're just trying to like give reasons to weasel out, right? Saying that you don't want to actually give an inference.
All right, so all right. Here, I'll give all the premises or whatnot, or try my best. All right, so premise one would be that knowledge is certain, not probabilistic.
What's the argument for
premise? Yeah, premise.
No, it's fine. You could just catch it out that way. That's not gonna matter. You could, just say
premise. Premise.
I guess we can go through. Yeah,
it's either accepted or rejected. Right. So knowledge is certain. Rather than probabilistic. So premise two, would be that ontology is necessary for epistemology, and that you also need to have access to ontology, to the actual state of affairs, in order to have knowledge.
Listen, you're like adding like frameworks into the argument. Just give propositions.
The conclusion.
Yeah, do you want to go premise by premise?
Conclusion.
Listen, in a conventional argument, when one says
that the Christian God.
In a conventional argument, when one says Socrates is man, all men are mortal, therefore Socrates is mortal, right? They don't really appeal to different frameworks of ontology, right? I said I'll grant you whatever frameworks you're using. Just lay out the actual propositions, right? You're like putting in these philosophical pedagogies within the premises, right? Like, this is my epistemic framework with an implication to this ontological. Like, that's just not interesting, right? I can grant you whatever you're going to say, right? I can grant you the certainty and stuff. You can just give those, not caveats. You could just give those ultimatums or prerequisites. That's going to be fine. Just lay out the actual inference, like, I don't know, like a Kalam or whatever argument you actually have for God, and then just tell me the frameworks of whatever pedagogy of philosophy, and then we can critique from that.
Okay. So premise one, knowledge is certain, rather than probabilistic. Premise two, without access to the actual state of affairs.
Ignored everything I said. Okay, whatever.
One cannot have without access to the actual state of affairs. One cannot have certainty, conclusion. The actual state of affairs contains all of the necessary properties and attributes, such as being a mind with a revelatory nature, amongst others. In order for you,
this is a horrible argument.
It doesn't even follow any rule of inference.
Yeah, what's the rule of inference?
Going to be derived from the premises, right?
Yeah, I didn't see any rule of inference that's going to be instantiated in the argument.
Yeah, so your conclusion.
You didn't see what?
I didn't see any real inference
Wait, real
instantiated.
quick. And real quick. In both of your premises, ask a Christian. You never stipulated anything about the properties of God, right? That you stipulated in the conclusion. So that's obviously not going to be derivative from the premises. So that's non sequitur. Doesn't follow.
It's derivative from that knowledge. It's derivative from that knowledge is certain.
Not what?
Why?
How?
No, you can have knowledge that's certain without these things, right? Like that's just a hidden premise. You'd have to
so
that premise in the
Let's even wanted to quiz me with philosophy. I don't think he knows
you
formal
cannot
logic.
have this certain account of knowledge without something else, right? And then once you say that, maybe it'll be sequitur. But right now it's just non sequitur. It's not going to follow.
Okay. So I guess let's agree then. So do we agree on premise 1 that knowledge is certain rather than probabilistic?
No, because that's just what I think.
Okay, so we don't affirm that.
That is a probabilistic account.
No, that's just gonna. If you take it that epistemology or the nature of knowledge must be ascertained given a proposition, that's just gonna entail that all knowledge is gonna be unattainable epistemically given. That's just like by the definition gonna be an a priori critique, the inability to reach certainty, right? Like that's where skeptical scenarios and those strong models of critique are to arise, right? Do you have like a defeater for you're not in a dream right now? Because if it's the case you have to be certain to have knowledge, then it's not going to be the case you have knowledge that you're not dreaming or have any knowledge of any proposition contained. You have a knowing background, but yeah, I mean that's just going to be mitigated given consideration of like Peronio and methodological and those models of skepticism if you're going to take like an epistemic or certainty view.
Mm-hmm. Are you saying that to me, or was that to Turns?
To you. Can you demonstrate that I'm dreaming is going to be falsifical?
Yes. So, yes.
Okay, so what's the formal proof?
Oh, the thing. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I like to explain things through questions. If you'd play along, it would be greatly conducive. It'd be greatly conducive in like kind of understanding, like grasping what I'm saying.
Listen, it could be the case I can have a failure to actually answer the question adequately, and that's not going to derive the case you have actually somehow drawn an explanation. So that's just
it's not about a failure to answer. It's not a failure. It's just to help clarify, like, to paint the picture. Okay, so here's the question, and like if you want to answer it, okay, fine. But yeah, so basically, the question is that is there being, right? Is there an actual state of affairs?
That wasn't the question. I don't know why you're derailing to a different.
That's once again. Listen, you have to give an argument.
Could you be dreaming?
What you have to do is give an argument that falsifies
a being.
Yeah, all you gotta do is deploy an argument that is a negative existential.
I don't know how that answers anything.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay. All right.
So do you not have an argument for why I'm not dreaming?
I mean, I don't like the approach of the conversation. Like, I like how I handle things, and then you want to do it all in this different way.
Here, right?
Yeah, you want to do it in a manner that's non-justificatory. That's the issue. We want to reach the justification, and you just don't. Right? I take it that inferences are going to be justificatory.
Kind of like sandpaper. All right. Well, anyway, yeah. So I guess I'm going to do things my way. If you don't like that,
right?
I think
we're just wondering.
I'm not passing in turns. You could go turns.
Yeah, so we're just wondering, what gives you this sort of certain
retarded?
Okay, so yeah, so I'll explain via questions, and then I'll also explain outside of that questions? As well. So okay. Yes. So would you affirm that there's being?
What is this?
There's an actual state of affairs.
There's an actual state of affairs.
Yes,
like things actually exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a way, yeah.
Like things have to do with the question.
Okay. So yeah, so there's existence, there's being, there's an actual state of affairs. Okay, so how do you know that there's being?
I don't even have this.
How do you know
definition?
Ontology?
I mean, there's different ways that you can attain knowledge, right? So you can have an a posteriori account, you can have an a priori account. But in any case, whether or not I can give you that account is irrelevant to my question. So do you have an answer to the question? Like, how do you have a certain account? I don't get that. I don't even know. Like, what do you mean by certain?
All right. So essentially from the non-God worldview, right? You do not have access to the actual state of affairs. You don't have access to ontology, right? The true
do you think
nature
that we're actually talking right now?
I don't want to see this. Nicholas ugly ass face.
Yes. I would affirm.
What do you think access is? So that's
a connection.
You agree, right?
Like
Premise one,
revelation.
I'm talking to you right now. Premise two, that's actually the case. Conclusion, I have access to things that are actually the case, right? So that's not gonna be right. You affirm
yeah, all right. So are you speaking about this from within the Christian worldview or the non-God worldview?
The non-God worldview. It doesn't matter, right? You affirm the primacy.
It does matter. It does matter. All right. So in the non-God worldview, because there's only one actual worldview, which is the Christian worldview, right? The actual state of affairs.
Yeah. What do you mean by
a worldview? It's all encompassing, right? It encompasses metaphysics, epistemology, ontology. Like everything is covered by the worldview, right? There's nothing that is outside.
All encompassing? Why can't I just give counterexamples of that, right? Like I take it that you think that I have a worldview, right? I have a way in which I stipulate that the world is actually true, right? So I don't see why you would hold that. But what's it have to do with my counterexample? Because you accepted the premises. You can't just like accept the premises of a deductive argument and then say, no, I disagree with the conclusion, right? Like what do you think a deductive argument is?
All right. So what was the premises and such?
Well, now I don't remember, but it's going to be something like premise 1. Well, your conclusion is that I don't have access to anything, right? But premise 1, we are actually having a conversation right now. Premise 2, if we are actually having a conversation right now, then I have access to things that are actually true. Conclusion, I have access to things that are actually true.
Okay. All right. So premise 1, we are having a conversation right now, and so right now I'm doing an internal critique of your worldview. Right. We're not within the Christian worldview. We're within the non-God worldview. So premise 1, we are having a conversation right now. So how do you know that other?
Wait, you say that my worldview is the case, right?
This guy's like Detroiter, but if he didn't have the ChatGPT knowledge, just the rhetoric.
Say what? So sorry. What did you say, Terrence?
Yeah, which means to say that my worldview is possibly the case, right?
No, it means that you're in rebellion against God and constructing a hypothetical worldview in order to justify your sin and rebellion against Him, right?
Yeah. So what's the contradiction with my worldview?
What are we talking about? Yeah. So premise 1. Yeah. Premise 1. We are talking right now, and we're speaking about this within the non-God worldview. So how do you know that other minds exist outside of yourself?
It doesn't matter, right? You agreed with the premises. So I do have access to the outside world. So you agree with the premises, which entails the conclusion I have access to the outside world.
How do you?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but how do you know that? Oh, yeah, but how do you know that I'm not just like some sort of alien technology?
Sorry, I wasn't finished. You made the claim. You made the claim that I don't have access to these things, right? And I give you a counterexample, right? So I do actually have access to these things, and you agree with the premises of a deductive account or a deductive argument. Like, what do you think a deductive argument is? If you accept both premises, it entails the conclusion in all situations.
Okay. In the non-God worldview, I do not accept premise number 1. Right. So in the non-God worldview, I do not accept premise number 1.
It doesn't matter, right? This is your own worldview. So you accept that if your worldview is true, then this is going to be the case. So I do have access to these things, right? You just had an extra step.
No. So yeah, it's not like unless you're saying that like what is your epistemology?
Virtue epistemology.
Because you're sounding.
Yeah, my epistemology. Virtue epistemology.
Virtue.
Yeah, that's right. A virtue epistemology. Are you familiar?
What the fuck does that even mean?
No, I'm not. I don't know what that means.
Like most philosophers. Yeah, what's the issue?
Can you describe it?
Who just said, what is that? Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, I can describe it. So you can just say something like, you believe something, right? You believe something that's true. That's the second condition. Third condition is that you believe something in virtue of it being manifest, right? And by manifest, I just take that to be some sort of primitive. And manifest just means to say something like, I can only describe it with reference to some sort of examples, right? So I can say something like, suppose I shoot an arrow from a bow and arrow, right? And the arrow hits the bullseye, right? That's the non-Gettier case, or that's going to be perceptual knowledge. It's going to be isomorphic, right? Say I shoot a bow from a bow and arrow, and it goes at T1, it goes to the left, right? Gush of wind pushes it to the left. Gush of wind at T2 pushes it to the right. Well, it's going to follow that. That's manifest, right? That's what we mean by the term. So that's the account of virtue epistemology. So justification isn't a factor in virtue epistemology, and I can give you reasons why semantically we would just negate that. If you're familiar with Gettier cases.
Yeah, the cow is in the field behind the hay bale. The farmer says,
right.
"There's a cow in my field." Yeah, but
yeah.
What do you think the cow is actually the hay bale?
Why do I think the cow is actually real?
No, I didn't say that. Go ahead. No, that's not my question.
Do you have any objections to the account of knowledge or epistemic view that I just gave you?
I mean, I don't really understand. Like you're talking, like you're saying, like there's arrows and the wind pushes it to the left or the wind pushes it to the right. Yeah, I didn't really understand. Like so the epistemologies, I tend to understand. Like I tend to understand, like there's empiricism, there's foundationalism, there's rationalism.
Those are systems of justification, right? Those are systems in which we come to know various things, right? That's an empirical view. Now, I don't hold to empiricism. I don't really take a view on that, right? But in terms of what I mean by knowledge, I just gave you the three conditions.
Mm-hmm. So it's like justification, like a manifest.
No,
justifier
isn't part of the view. I don't hold that justification as part of the view. You can know something and be unjustified.
Okay. All right. But yeah, I guess continue. Can
you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, you have a reaction to the but I just wanted to talk about your argument, right? Now, I'm fine with talking about my worldview, but I don't think my worldview is pertinent to the claim that you made, right? Because you made the claim that you
exactly, like we shouldn't go off like tangents, or we shouldn't go off topic.
Yeah, I mean,
worldview is
because I just knew it wasn't going to fucking work out for him, but
yeah, like your worldview, your belief into the objection you make here. So I don't think we should go down.
It's not at all pertinent to the claim that he put on the table. So you put on a very big claim, right? So you have to justify it.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Yeah.
What, bud?
Well, so basically, in order to have knowledge, there has to be being, right? In order for there to be epistemology, there has to be ontology. And to kind of paint a picture of what we're kind of engaged in, imagine like you're a zookeeper. Right? You're a zookeeper, and there's a zoo exhibit. And so in the zoo exhibit, there is there's like a river, there's grass, there's bamboo, and so these are all attributes and properties that make the zoo exhibit healthy for a panda. And so you can have panda in there, and he's living, and he's happy, he's doing great. So the zoo exhibit, it represents ontology. The grass and rocks.
I accept that that metaphysics is connected to these things, right? Or epistemology, but I don't understand why would that be a corollary of your view, right? Like, why is that going to entail the premise that you set out to prove for yourself? Because you said certain, right? Which I take to be a modal operator. You have to prove that it's a necessary account of knowledge, which means to say that you have to derive a contradiction from negation. That's just what I think that word means, right? Like, if you don't think that's what it means, then whatever.
So you want me to prove that knowledge is grounded in ontology, or in the actual state of affairs? Or
I agree with that. What's that have to do with the argument? You have to now
what are you asking me?
Affairs.
Sorry, the last part. What was the last thing you said? You have to argue that God is what?
God is actually the state of affairs, right? Or it's not actually.
I'm not gonna lie. This is like a complete waste of time to see this like conceptually confused and not tracking. Okay. He doesn't know any form of logic and has conveyed inference.
So with
I don't know why.
With regards to,
because you don't actually know like much of any.
Yeah, like I'm not clear on why that was. Right? You try to make like.
Let me finish. Let me finish. So you're saying I need to demonstrate like the Christian God is the actual state of affairs.
That's right.
Yeah. So with regards to the actual state of affairs, ontology is what is. Like, it is the true nature of being, and being in and of itself doesn't.
No, I've already explained this to you, right. But okay.
You don't. Wait, who's making awesome noise?
Yeah, you just restated a position that you hold, right? I'm wondering what's the argument for God. I accept that ontology is XYZ. That's fine. I don't really care about that, right? I was wondering about what the argument for God was.
Okay, so you're doing an internal critique of Christianity then?
I can give you an internal critique, but that's not really what I was doing. I'm doing an external critique because you said that you can externally verify the proposition God exists. So now I'm trying to get you to externally verify the claim, right? That's an external critique.
No, so external critiques are invalid. Right, like if I do an external critique,
what do you mean by invalid?
Yeah, they're invalid. So if I do like an external critique,
first of all, wait. First of all, validity is going to be a property of the syntax of an inference, so that's already going to be incoherent. But when you say it's invalid, all you're meaning is that it's going to be cashed out given some external semantic correspondence to the intentional property of an utterance, which is going to be the meaning, right? So all you're saying when it's invalid is that someone means some other thing when they utter a term, right? Which is to say that the name corresponds with a different meaning. This guy's absolutely asinine. He doesn't know any philosophy. Dude.
Yeah, wait.
Right, well,
this is actually super uninteresting.
Ask first, what does valid mean? What does that word mean, valid?
He doesn't know what he's saying. Oh my god.
I need to fucking throw a logical book at this idiot or something. Here, let me send you some PDFs or something. I actually feel bad.
Okay, just make the argument. Just make the argument.
He doesn't know what an argument is. Wait, logic like that. I asked him what inference rules was he using, and he just played an argument independent of his rule of inference.
I can say it's not going to be sound, right? Okay, it's not sound, right? It's not sound to go and do an external critique, right?
Yeah, that's going to be a category error. Do you know what that is? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So whether or not it sounds is what we were disputing. So I don't know why you went into like some like derail about validity, because you didn't actually show that it doesn't like follow some well-accepted rule of inference, right? And by valid, I just think that means like if the premises are such that they have the truth value of t, then the conclusion necessarily has the truth value of t, and there's no situation in which it doesn't have the truth value of t. That's just what I take value or valid to mean. So I don't know what the hell you went on that rant for.
All right. So it's not sound, right? To do an external critique is not
Wait,
sound.
why does that matter?
So we need to do an internal critique.
What do you mean by valid?
Why is it not sound?
Well,
listen, he was the one who conveyed the term. So what did you mean when you uttered that was valid? What was,
posit.
What were you intending to mean?
I can just.
Okay, whatever. Ignore
I can use things from within. Yeah, I can use things from within my worldview to say your worldview is false, right? Like let's say we're talking about like Jesus walking on the water, and you're saying, okay, well, that doesn't really make much sense to me. Now, how does that work out? And I'm just like, like God helped Christ walk on the water, and then you're like, oh well, I don't really accept that God exists, and I'm like, well, in my worldview, God exists, so it doesn't really matter what you think, right, or what your worldview is, right? It's like so I'm using like an external critique,
right? That's not really even isomorphic to the critique I leveled at you. The critique I leveled at you is that you haven't presented some sort of account or argument that would entail necessity for your account of knowledge, right? That's the claim, is that it's certain.
He said that it's going to be necessary?
Right? That means it's 100%.
Oh, yeah,
100%. It's not possible.
Now I'm lost. We're still talking about epistemology?
Well, you'd have to clarify some sort of modal scope for the claim.
Well,
which is,
wait, I'm now confused. So, are you taking ascertainment to be like a modal category in like an epistemic modality, or I'm not? This is not like this is like confusing the hell out of me. Like I don't think I'm using any of the terms in any sense of literature properly.
Let me talk to you one person at a time.
I'm just trying to get clarity.
So
for me, it's okay for this even being.
No, well, let me. Okay, well, let me.
I'm just trying to get
one at a time.
to illustrate.
Yeah, one at a time.
Okay, bye.
Sure, one at a time.
Yeah, I'll pipe down.
One at a time.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
If it makes you feel better.
Okay, so. Yes, indeed. Okay. So. All right, we're looking at this. All right, so we're doing internal critique of Christianity. What is your account for knowledge? All right, so hopefully we agree. We hopefully agree that knowledge is certain. All right, so okay, we agree knowledge is certain.
No, we don't.
Right?
We don't agree with that.
Dude, are you tracking at all? You know how many times he said he doesn't accept that?
Already clarified that
He's already giving clarity to his epistemic virtues framework.
in the conditions of knowledge for it to be certain, right? That's not something that I stipulated by theory of epistemology, right? That's not the
Wait,
theory that I laid out.
Is this guy entertaining it?
I don't know. We may go somewhere.
All right, look, I'm only going to debate one person. One person.
Yeah. I'm not trying to debate you.
You're running a.
Or find it.
He doesn't subscribe to the idea of like epistemic humility. I
Like running away.
Argue this.
All right. Yeah. You're running away.
Who's running away?
So.
What is this? What are you talking about?
Yeah, he's running away.
That's a good question. Do you not subscribe to the idea of like epistemic humility? Is that what you mean when you say like knowledge is certain? Christian.
Okay. Yes. So essentially, if you say we have to say that knowledge is certain, right? Because
you have to say. Is that going to be like some prescriptive thing?
Let him explain.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, because.
Oh, so that is prescriptive.
Yeah. Sure. Because if knowledge is probabilistic, then you can never know. You can never have certainty about anything, right? And if you say, okay, knowledge is probabilistic, then that statement.
Not you jumping in.
Yeah.
We've already let him
statement.
This is going circular. Like he's done this. Like
that statement. Oh, why is there so much over talking?
Okay, so
because you're like a dog chasing its tail.
Christian, what would you say to somebody that subscribes to the idea of epistemic humility?
Could you explain that? Like, what does that mean?
Epistemic humility is simply the view that like knowledge is not certain, and that because of the fact that knowledge isn't certain, you can't make any claims from certainty.
Can you actually
being a skeptic?
Could you actually level the critique?
Okay, well then I'd ask them. Okay, well I'd ask them if they know. Do they know epistemic humility is true? Is the case 100%? Do they know that epistemic humility is
the case?
Where would you go? From there?
What do you mean?
If they say,
why is the fact still arguing? You've already illustrated that you're unable. But you've already demonstrated you're unable to actually get some falsification for a skeptical scenario, right? Or
if they say no, right? If they say no, then they don't know if epistemic humility is true, and if they don't know if epistemic humility is true, then they don't. They're saying stuff without knowing.
Ask a Christian. Could you actually level My
problem with that critique is like
knowledge. Can you level that critique?
My problem with that critique, Christian, is that's literally just an entailment of the position, though. Like, you're just telling them something that they already believe in. Like, yeah, sure, I don't know if this worldview is truly the case, right? But that's literally in one breath what they're saying, and then you're just trying to point out the contradiction when that's not really a contradiction.
He doesn't. He's not even aware of what logic is.
Counterexamples of epistemology, like virtue epistemology, and he just like didn't know what the fuck to say.
But he's not even making sense when he's saying that his epistemic framework is going to have some constitutive of ascertainment towards proposition, right? Because that's not clear. Because when I asked you to give some falsification metric in reference to like skeptical scenarios or a baronial state of affairs, right? I said, how do you verify it's the case I'm not dreaming? You didn't lay out an inference to disprove that and demonstrates full circle. So it's just not going to be the case if you have knowledge.
Yeah, so I just don't get it.
So the way that you know that you're not dreaming is that within the Christian worldview, the ground of all being, right, ontology, is God, right? It is he is omniscient, right? The ground of all being is a mind, which is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, always truth revealing, and he has revealed to you.
Are you a skeptical scenario? Hold on. Are you
revealed to you? Are you skeptical? Are you trying to convince people? Are you trying to convince people that are atheists, or are you simply just trying to express your worldview? Because if you're trying to convince people that are atheists, obviously they wouldn't really give a fuck about you saying things like, my God expressed to me that X idea is true, because of the fact that they would also deny the existence of that same God that you're trying to
listen, are you a skeptical theist?
I'm just not sure.
Or not?
Why would you trust this God? Like, why do you trust him?
That's what I'm trying to... Yeah, that's literally what I was getting to. Are you a skeptical theist?
An extra step. I don't get the
Come on.
Why you
am I?
Are you a skeptical
theist? All right, guys, one at a time. So now,
so are you a skeptical theist? Is what I'm trying to
ask. Am I a skeptical theist?
Mm-hmm.
Because
if you're a skeptical theist, I believe that.
What is a skeptical?
Well, I believe skeptical theism is well, I can explain what skeptical theism is. But the issue with skeptical theism is, I believe the corollary is just going to be global skepticism. Right. So what skeptical theism is, that there's going to be access to justifiers for propositions that God has access to, that we as humans are not going to have access to. But you would agree that it may be the case God either has or doesn't have justification, right? That's what non-skeptical theism, or that's what skeptical theism is, right? It could be the case that God doesn't actually have justifiers. But a non-skeptical theism, which is going to be like a faith foundationalist or something like that, they posit the view that they're going to have access to all justifiers that God does, and that it's not going to be logically possible that God doesn't have justifiers for all things, right? That there's going to be justification for all things, and that the only way one can posit that there is justification for all things is to say that they have the same access as God for all the justifiers of all propositions. But if it's not the case, if you're a skeptical theist, meaning it may be the case God is evil, right, and you can't ascertain that, then that means you would have to give the justification. I mean, if you're not a skeptical theist. If you are a skeptical theist and believe it is possible God is evil, and that just means you're not, that's going to just be like a self-defeater for your own view if you're taking ascertainment. Because now it's not, now you're going to need to actually give justification for all views.
Is he a skeptical theist or no?
I believe he's not, because if he's a skeptical theist, that'd be self-refuting. So I would hope he wouldn't. But then again, I don't see how independent of God would he be able to actually demonstrate that he's not dreaming. Because if he's not a skeptical theist, he has the independent access that God also has. So you can attain the justifier independent of an appeal to God. But if you're not, if you are a skeptical theist, then that means you just don't know if God is justified.
Yes. So essentially, God is the ultimate context. Like he is the bottom layer, and there's nothing that is like justifying God. Like God is the ultimate justification. And yeah. Well, you're saying like, does God like, is there a justification? Is he a justifier? For all things, and you're talking about like skeptical theism.
So there's like things like the Mosean problem of evil, as opposed to like the logical problem of evil, right? It's going to be like, well, if let's say evil exists for God's ultimate plan, and that's going to be necessarily instantiated in the state of affairs that evil exists to allow free will or whatever, right? The God's ultimate plan. Let's say a tree drops, right, and a tree just falls because, I don't know, an earthquake or something, right? Or a tree's old, just falls over, and it falls on a baby deer, and the baby deer is now crushed, and it broke its ribs, and it's bleeding internally. And it's going days starving, right? Unlike stopping God not intervening and stopping a human from shooting another human, the Mosean problem of evil posits, like, I don't see why it would be the case. God being omnipotent doesn't interfere and allow the deer to be saved, right? And just like, because that seemingly wouldn't interfere with God's ultimate plan. So if you're a skeptical theist, that means you don't know the reasons for why God allows that deer to stay underpinned and starve, right? But if you're not a skeptical theist, that means God has justification for why he allows that deer to stay pinned, and you're not skeptical to whether God has that justification, right? You ascertain that. You're certain. So that means you should be able to derive independently of God the same justification, right? Which is then going to be almost infeasible epistemically. Unless you can prove that God has a reason. And then not just say, I would believe God has a reason, like give the actual justification for why God allows it. Then that's the only way you're not a skeptical theist.
All right. So, yeah, I'm just kind of thinking. So with regards to the skeptical theist, so let's say the guy, he says, I don't know why the deer is being pinned and starving. So if he holds to that he doesn't know why, then, but could he still know, right? Can he still know that God has a good reason, right? God has a good justification, but he just doesn't have access to that justification. But he knows that God does have a good reason as to why the deer is trapped and starving, right? Is that what is the case?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you have the access to the justifier for why God allows that deer to stay underpinned and slowly die a treacherous, torturous death.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would say no. Like, I do not have access to the secret will of God, right? God has like a secret will, and he has a sovereign will and a prescriptive will. The prescriptive will is that which is the moral will, like what he wills for us to love God, to love our neighbor as ourselves, don't murder, don't steal, don't commit adultery. The sovereign will is all that occurs, is allowed by God for the creator.
So hold on, is the sovereign will like perfect?
Yes.
It is? So,
yep.
At number 31, right?
All right, well, I don't want to segue into. I don't want to segue to a bunch of stuff. No, I don't want to segue into a bunch of things. I want to focus on one thing, and then we can jump to all the other stuff. All right, so we're talking about the justificatory path and whatnot. All right, so what's your follow up, badass?
So I mean, I didn't quite capture what were you? Wait, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was gonna get into it. So I didn't hear whether or not you posited you do have justification for why God allows that or doesn't. Because that wouldn't interfere with free will.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be like a moral virtue to stop that, right? Like, you know, the principle of non-benevolence, right? If you have the power to promote the best moral outcome, especially at the lowest risk possible, right? And I mean, there's not going to be any interference with human free will, and it's just an innocent deer being crushed, slowly starving to death with God's, omnipotence. It doesn't seem clear as to why God allows it. So I'm just wondering, do you believe you have the justification for why God allows it? If not, that's just going to be contradictory to your own view.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there's like a lot of things. I mean, one is that, yes, that could be the case. It could be the case that the deer is trapped beneath and dies starving. Another thing that could be the case is that it could be like God makes it that the deer doesn't suffer. Like, so when it is there and dying, God allows the process to occur, but without any sort of suffering for the deer.
That's just going to be ad hoc.
I mean, that could be the case. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, but let's say given that it is the case that the deer suffers and starves and such. So yeah, I'm just kind of like going through. So I wouldn't know the I wouldn't know like the secret will of God. I wouldn't know, okay, why does God allow like this deer to die and starve and suffer? Right? I wouldn't know that specifically. But like I would know that God is good, right? He's good, he's holy, he's righteous, he works all things together for good for those who love him.
And how do you know that?
And so he's working all things for well that is through his direct revelation, right? God,
yeah, you understand that.
He reveals him.
That's just going to be skeptical theism.
Okay, go ahead.
Listen, so the idea is that obviously that you should use that's going to be obvious. You need more like critical thinking than that, because obviously if God is the one who inspires his own Bible, and he is the one who's furnishing these characteristics or characterizing himself to be omnibenevolent, that's going to be compatible with him being a deceiver and writing that. So that's obviously not going to furnish any greater evidence that he's a deceiver than not, that he's omnibenevolent, or that he's all-powerful or omniscient, right? All we know, given his feats, are that he has a capacity or aptitude to actuate a universe and facilitate it at the very most. That's not indicative that he has all powers or limitless powers. But yeah, I mean, if you're just going to refer to scripture, that's not going to be, that's not going to be a strong case, let alone, I wouldn't even see that as any case. It doesn't raise any probability at all, right? It's going to be perfectly compatible with a liar, right? That he's lying, that he's omnipotent, lying, he's omnibenevolent. And that's once again just going to be skeptical theism, right? That you commit to the view, but you don't actually have the access to the justification that God is, right? You're just appealing to God's testimony of himself, right? Like if a murderer came up to you and you're unbeknownst that he's a murderer, and he says he's not a murderer, and then you tell cops he didn't murder, because he told you he's not a murderer. Like, are you serious? That's going to be your justification for why the random individual did not murder because he told you he was a murderer?
Yeah, and I mean, we can even draw this out in representation. So, like, Christian, do you agree that there are contradictory interpretations of the Bible?
Yeah, that's going to be another issue. That interpretation. I'm not going to get into the interpretation argument, but interpretation.
Right. Well, I mean, it's.
Yeah. One second. Right now, it's just one on one. No people jumping in. Right. Glad to take other comments after. Okay.
Well, I do gotta go soon, and I also find this kind of a bit unentertaining, so I'm gonna go in like probably like 5-10 minutes around that. So, yeah, I mean, the interpretation issue is also gonna be like a really big problem, given that. Like, Moxie, shut up! I already slammed you before. You actually your booty butt. Anyways, so I'm just not clear. You're saying that the only evidence you have. Well, I mean, you don't have evidence. The only recourse. I mean, that's not gonna be the only citation for why you believe God is these properties is because the entity of God utters that he is them. That's the justification. That's skeptical theism. Which is to say that you're not justifying God. You're saying based on the individual conveying the claims he is, the claims are true in virtue of him uttering them. That's the definition of non-justification. A claim is that which produces mental content, right? And evidence is that which raises that claim to a higher echelon. Right? Like if I say John has a dog, it's not.
Doris, wait, what do you think skeptical theism is?
Yeah, skeptical theism is that one is.
I don't.
Yeah, that one believes. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, look, I don't. Yeah.
You keep cutting out. What is it?
Okay, but let's.
No, it's just gonna talk or?
Yeah, your push to talk is weird.
No, I don't have push to talk right now.
All right.
It's
let me actually.
Like,
let
God
me
exists,
respond.
that we should be skeptical of the validity to this from God's perspective.
That's not skeptical.
Guys.
Sir, we're reading from these, like, IEP, that's what it is?
Alright, yeah, one.
Sir, you're just that you're so wrong on this.
Okay.
It's fine.
Alright. Yeah, let's
I had a question though.
Yeah, let's
coming up with
do one-on-one.
First, I do gotta go, so
yeah, let's save it for after.
Bye, baby. Fast, so. Moxie, you're even worse. Like, I'm gonna be honest.
Shut the fuck up.
I was slamming you another time. We should actually do it.
Literally.
Yeah, alright, peace.
Let me finish.
You can finish.